Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome back to the Liberated Sensitive, the show where we talk about all issues surrounding being a highly sensitive person and give you tools and tips on how to actually thrive as a highly sensitive person. So I'm Kim Gilster, your host, and I am a life coach for highly sensitive people. And with me is my assistant, Fleur Dubois. Hello, Fleur.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you? How are you today?
I'm lovely. Well, actually, I am lovely, but, on our last show we talked about feelings of being overwhelmed and how to handle that. And I have, yes, been getting a lot of the feelings of the possibility of being overwhelmed. There's a lot of stuff going on, especially because I'm in Southern California, for those who don't know. And, yes, I'm pretty much surrounded by fire and a lot of people going through a lot right now. And then we, see what else is going on in the world. And there's a lot to deal with energetically, on top of which we have, the holidays, and a lot of people are really, going through the holiday blues and, the stress of the potential of, dealing with members of their family that they might not feel so good about, I suppose you could say. So that's why we decided, again, to do a part 2 of dealing with your family of origin. Because, well, oftentimes at this time of the year, we do have to deal with them directly. And, again, as I said on our last show, even if you're estranged from your family or you're choosing not to be with your family of origin for whatever reason during the holidays, a lot of those memories come in. We might have subconscious feelings of guilt. I see a lot of people when they do that, they're angry, and that's okay. It really is. It's almost as if, you look for some sort of an excuse, to not be with them. Some people do, anyway. When in essence, it's either you want to or you don't want to. Okay? Because an empowered person really comes from the space of, I'm going to do what is the most loving thing for me to do for me. That at all times throughout our lives, in whatever it is that we're doing, the question to always fall back on is this really what I want? Why or why not? Okay? So first we ask ourselves, is this what I really want? We ask ourselves from our heart space. Okay? If our heart space says no, and yet, as we know, sometimes our brain will say, but you need to do this because da-da-da-da-da-da. You need to do this because da-da-da-da-da-da, you really have to ask yourself, what is legitimate, right? So what does legitimate look like? Where I might not necessarily want to do a particular thing in a certain way. Use your heart space if it's going to get you what you want. So you're doing this particular thing because it gets you closer to your ultimate goal of what you want. Your heart space will usually say yes, and but your brain will sometimes still, be kicking and screaming with you, and at that point, that's the trigger that you work and you deal with, right? So how does this play into, being with our family of origin? So, if you're in a space where your heart space says, well, your heart space says, I really want to be with my family of origin, but your brain is saying, I don't want to be with my family of origin. My suggestion, as it was on the last show, is to work those triggers around that. Now, it doesn't mean that, maybe during this holiday season that you will be able to, because you may still be in too much conflict to be comfortable enough in that situation. And so it may, in the long run, be too damaging still for you to do so. But at other times, it's not. And I find that more times than not, it's not. Again, if we're dealing with a situation where, somebody really is extremely abusive, or, maybe we dealt with, something like one of my family members molested me, say, when I was a child, and, the rest of my family is not listening to me, I made it up, or, whatever. This is just one sort of scenario where I don't think that it would be appropriate or healthy for a person to most likely go and be with those people, because, they haven't come to a space where they're, able to really come to you. It's just not an empowering space. Now, if you, however, have gone to them from a space of compassion, and you are able to confront them and have a discussion and appreciate whatever their feelings are, okay, oftentimes this works itself through. It may take some time, right? So if we hold the space, that's what holding the space is, for whatever their feelings are. Just allowing them to have whatever feelings they have, oftentimes they will come to us and tell us, this is how I actually feel. It is not my place with anyone or anyone else's place to say to that person, it's not okay for you to feel that way. It is simply the way that they feel. Once you come from that space of compassion, of making it okay to feel how they feel, then it allows them space to have a great amount of potential to work through that, and particularly to heal the spaces of strife and, pain between you and themselves. This takes time. Yes, it does. It is not something that just sort of happens overnight, but you would be surprised at just how often it really starts, the energies between you start to really work out once you're coming from that space. But then how do you gain that space of compassion, right? Mm-hmm. We don't, gaining the space of compassion is, a big challenge. So first of all, we need to make the decision, right? I want this to be healed, okay? Whether or not they decide to heal whatever their portion of what's going on between the two of you or not, it doesn't really matter as much as you're coming from the space of, I want to have compassion. Now, this doesn't mean that you act like a doormat. Not at all. Mm. Okay? If that person still wants to berate and belittle you and, just as on a constant basis, then obviously, the space of compassion, because the first space of compassion we have is always for us first, right? So the compassionate thing to do in that situation would be more to say, well, apparently you have things that you need to work out, and so I'm going to not speak to you right now so that you have the space to do that without me around. Okay, and when you're ready, if you're ever ready, you can, come to me and, yes, we might have some emotional stuff going on, but, maybe we can sort of work through this. And that's still acting out of a space of compassion, because I'm not judging them or saying that their feelings aren't okay or any of that. Okay? They're allowed whatever their feelings are. If they're still in a space of, blaming people, blaming me, blaming others, whatever, then that's where they want to be. Okay? All I can do is state my case out of my space of compassion for myself, out of a space of compassion for them, and seek to move forward. So how do you do that when they're not around? Okay, because we want to do this, obviously, at times, we want to work on things when we're not being directly confronted from it, when we're not being directly confronted by them, right? So we're not, on the phone with them, or, at a dinner with them, or, what have you. So we can then say, okay, I want to work on having this space of compassion and love. So I'm going to, do my best to manifest, what that would look like. So I might do things like, get on the internet and look up things about how to have compassion. I, am doing, meditations that really open up all of my chakras. And oftentimes what happens, as we have seen in our lives, this happens often, just the energy alone is manifesting things. So that we might, go into a store and have a conversation with someone that, sparks something, where they might be talking about, a similar experience that seems like the opposite side, or, so there's a representation of a person who is in our life, maybe a sibling or a parent or even our children, who, and you're able to hear them because they're not actually your family. They're not energetically as close to you because they're not carrying your DNA, right? As directly. So, pay attention, be aware of those things. And, sit and listen to them, like really listen. And then, go back and meditate with it and put it in your heart and see what it is that you can see. Even if it triggers you, because it's probably going to trigger you slightly, it's just not going to be as like this overwhelming emotion, which is where we can really work the triggers and get to the core when we're not in that state of extreme emotion. Okay.
Yeah.
Because when we're in the state of extreme emotion, as we know, we need to just be with the pain and allow the pain to, be released through our body and, make it stay through whatever it's doing in order for us to heal. And not hang on to it, just sit with it, do our best to not allow our brain to want to, evaluate the heck out of it. Right? Yeah, well, that's one of the most challenging parts to it. Our brain wants to come in and say, oh, well, this is going on, and this is going on, and and then pretty soon we start spitting out, and we're in this huge emotional turmoil, right? And ultimately, our brain is really blaming us and judging us, and then it's telling us it's judging all of these people, and there's horrible, they made me feel this way, and it's trying to avert, right, what the pain is.
Yeah.
And it's going to try to do that. So, right. So what do we do when it does that? What do we do when it does that, Fleur?
What? When it tries to avert the pain, I sit with the feeling and tell myself it's okay
Right.
to feel that way, but I don't work the trigger because
Right.
it's just too strong, like you were just saying.
Right, but more specifically, what do you do when your brain is just like going? You can't just shut your brain off. It doesn't work that way. It's the same as
yeah. I just acknowledge it, like, oh, okay, release it.
Right.
That's what I do. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Right.
I think that. Okay. Yeah, because if you try to
Right.
push it away, it's just going to try and come back, isn't it? Because you're then averting the thought. So it's
Right,
just
because
try
you're not
and come
acknowledging
back.
its presence.
That's right.
Right.
Yes. So you just acknowledge its presence, and we don't give it any power because it's just a thought. It's not reality. It's a judgment. Judgment and blame.
Correct. It's like when we're dealing with little children,
Mhm. Mhm.
What do? We acknowledge whatever they're, if we're going to be healthy adults with them, we acknowledge whatever it is they're feeling. We don't get in there and say, oh, you're just wrong and this and that. Oh, well, that's interesting that, you feel that way. Have you ever thought about it, baby, this way? Well, oh, okay. And if they want to argue with you, what do you do? Okay, well, I suppose. Right? You're not going to get into some knockdown, drag out with 3-year-olds, right? Let us hope not. Even though I do see some adults do that, I don't think that it's more the healthy thing to be doing. Yeah.
Acknowledgement is far better.
Acknowledgement of, okay, that's where you want to be with it. Okay, because even with a 3-year-old, you'll see, with little children, a lot of times when you just say, well, okay, then, oftentimes, more times than not, they come back to you and they trust you more. And then they come to you about oftentimes the same subject, and they actually want to ask you, and now they're ready to listen to what you're trying to tell them about, what's going on. But when you are constantly struggling with them, what do? They throw fits. They get all out of sorts. They scream and cry, and they become a big emotional mess. So now you've created even more of a problem, and it's become like a serious abusive type of situation. With not even meaning to. So that's what people often do too with, their brain, their subconscious thoughts in particular, right?
Yeah.
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 They get into this fight. That's not positive.
Yeah.
That's not this. Da 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 da. And it's like that parent that's saying you have to you have to and and that's anyway a big part of the reason why our brain is doing that, because oftentimes we've had parents or grandparents or siblings even who've done that to us when we were children, right? So then we're going to continue to do that to ourselves? No, because just like the 3-year-old, what will happen is that we will suffer in pain. Okay?
Yeah.
So how then does this lead to a space of having compassion? Because what we're doing in this situation is we're giving ourselves compassion. When we really learn to give ourselves compassion, it's like a light bulb goes on. Right? And we learn to practice compassion with other people. So more times than not, when somebody else comes at us, we are able to practice from that space of compassion. It doesn't mean, again, that we are allowing them to beat us up. And anyway, most of the time
No.
my alignment with it is they're not even beating me up because I'm not triggered.
Right.
Because there's not
Yeah.
any real judgment about what's going on with them. I'm simply seeing them for who they are and what's going on with them. And I'm not trying to change them. I'm just saying, oh, would you like some help? I'm practicing what is true empathy. Because all I can do is guide people who would like to be guided. If they don't want to, fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But the thing is, how do you get them to want to? Well, you get them to want to by treating them with compassion. And yes, sometimes it takes time for them to want to.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, compassion is a practice of patience. But I will tell you that it will never happen, almost never happen, I should say, but almost never happen if we're instead coming from a space of judgment, if we're instead coming from a space of our own triggers, if we're instead coming from a space of conflict. Okay? All that will do in the long run, and oftentimes in the short run, is cause more suffering and more conflict. Okay? It's you know, like the analogy of the fertilizer, right? This person's bringing me this fertilizer.
Right.
So what do I decide I want to do with the fertilizer? I can turn my nose up at it and say, like, oh, my God, it's horrible, it's horrible. Oh, get it away from me. Oh, I want to vomit. Oh, this is just terrible. Oh, there's some fertilizer around me. Or, right? I mean, it does sound funny because it is sort of like how we deal with sometimes when we get triggered, right? Right.
Yes.
Or we can take that fertilizer and decide, you know, that fertilizer can be quite useful. Because I can take this fertilizer, thank you for the fertilizer. I'm going to take the fertilizer and I'm going to put it in the pots with my plants, and I'm going to grow some beautiful flowers, or, you know, I'm going to use it on my fruit trees so that I have this, you know, beautiful fruit that I can enjoy and eat and savor and appreciate, right? I can use it and plant it in my garden. Right. So is the fertilizer negative just because it's stinky? You know. Well, it depends on what I want to do with the fertilizer, because obviously if I were to take the fertilizer and put it in my mouth, it would probably make me quite sick in many different ways. Right?
Yeah.
So there's having compassion, right? Exactly. So there's having compassion for ourselves and having compassion for other people allows us to understand what to do with the fertilizer.
Right.
Right? Oh, you're bringing me that. I see.
Right. Put it to good use.
Why are you bringing me this? Why am I in alignment?
To grow something.
Huh?
To grow something.
To grow yourself.
And that's the intention. So it's not growing flowers, but it's to come from a space of compassion. As you were saying, set the intention. That's what you're using your fertilizer for,
and compassion and
right?
empathy doesn't look like, oh, I'm going to try to fix you, and oh, or I'm better than you, or any of those things. Okay?
Yeah.
Compassion just is, okay, you know, I mean, I understand on whatever level I can understand. Because quite clearly, I can't be that person, so I'm not, you know, I can only have whatever level of understanding that I have from my own personal experiences and from the energies I'm feeling from them, etc. Okay, and expecting myself to truly, completely understand, that's, you know, an exercise in futility.
That's right.
It really is.
It is.
Yeah. And then we oftentimes say, like with spiritual teachers or therapists or people like that, we have an expectation that they will do that. Well, that's not their job. And is that you have expectations that our mother or father or siblings, our spouse, our children, will do that as well. Nobody can do that. The only person who can do that is you. And then, once you really, really, really deeply understand that, you deeply understand that about the others. Okay, that doesn't mean I don't do things for others. I absolutely do.
Yeah.
I absolutely do. But I tend to ask them, is there anything you need? Is there anything that you want? Because they know better than I do. As opposed to saying, I'm going to, come and bring you flowers and I'm going to bring you soup. And then maybe they just want to be left alone. And here you are doing all of these things, and now it feels like, oh, gosh, you're totally overbearing to me. And then when they say, oh, you're being overbearing to me, you get hurt. Oh, but I was only trying to do this for you, blah, 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 blah. Okay?
Yeah.
And why are you doing that? Well, you're doing that because, oftentimes you're looking outside of yourself for those validations. And if we will, just like we talked about on the last show about family of origins, that's not the space that we want to be in, right? Because, again, it just creates conflict. Yes, you came to that person with the most loving feelings that you felt that you had, and, I'm not a loving person. What I'm saying is that didn't feel like love for that person because you weren't allowing them their space. You weren't allowing them because, you know what, sometimes people just need to be in their pain. They know whether or not they have that handled or not in most cases. Okay? Now, there are cases where, things look like they're getting very extreme, and so, you do, in those cases, need to possibly, step it up a little bit. But at the same time, the best way to even go about that is to, try to get them to sort of talk to you a little bit so that you could know, what, could possibly work for them, right? Because what works for you isn't necessarily what is going to work for the next person. I mean, there's the same stuff, like what I talk about on the show, but, as they say, the devil's in the details. The details of what needs to be done are very individual, okay?
Yeah.
Which is why, and since we've got 2 minutes left on the show, why it's very good to work with some kind of a teacher, some kind of a coach, some kind of a therapist, and maybe multiples of those things, okay? And I think we should probably do a show on how to find someone, okay, that is best suited for you, how to find, someone where you won't, or you most likely won't get caught up into things that are manipulative and really are not conducive to your growth. So we have 90 seconds left.
Yeah, that's
and,
a great idea.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah,
so we have 90
really
seconds
important.
left. Right?
Yeah.
Right, Fleur? Yeah. Right, we have 90 seconds left. So I did want to say that, that I am Kim Gilster, the Liberated Sensitive. You can find out more about me by going to the Liberated Sensitive on Facebook. I have two websites, kimgilster.com and also the liberated.com, and you can always book your free 15-minute consultation for coaching by emailing me at theliberatedsensitive@gmail.com, and I've left my email here on the show. And Fleur, we have 30 seconds left. So,
wow, I'm Fleur Dubois.
A minute.
I'm a tarot. Yes, you can find me at Empowered
20.
Tarot at tarotreadings9.com.
Awesome.
If you would like.
So, Uh-huh. Okay. So until next time, you all have a wonderful, wonderful life. Bye now.
Bye.